is this purchase going to be a stepping stone? We might be better off buying 1 or 2 suburbs out. We get a little bit more value in what we can get in that property. Let's do some work to it, or let's sit on it for a while, and we'll use that as a stepping stone to get into where we want to be.
G'day guys, welcome to the MTDC Lounge. This is a podcast that breaks down everything you need to know about designing and building your ultimate home and what to expect. Whether you're a DIY renovator, a budding developer, or everything in between, we'll dive into the building journey, touching on what to expect, what's next, and how to go about it. We'll hear from a heap of experienced consultants and trades about all aspects. So let's get stuck in. Welcome to the lounge. G'day guys, and welcome to another episode of the MTDC Lounge. You're here with your host Matt, and today we've got James Callinan. How are you, mate?
Well, thanks, Matt.
Good. All right, mate. You are the owner, or one of the owners of JLH Property.
Yep, that's us. Yeah.
Awesome, mate. Please tell me about yourself and how you got to be.
So, original background, Matt. Like, I've always been in property from my early start in the early 2000s, right through to now. I've always had a pretty strong, property focus for me. Like I've, came into the industry quite young as a sales agent up the valley. Spent 12 years up there where we did, a lot of it was residential, small rural holdings, but then large rural holdings and that lifestyle block. Was there for 12 years. Wife and I with the children moved this way with her predominantly with work. Still stayed working up the valley for a long time with Scotty and the team up there. Then it got to a point where commuting was just too much. And then that's when there's probably a bit of a pivot and refocused on working here full-time in Newcastle. I was at PRD for a long time, and then from there rolled across into Collier. So, over the last 20 years, I've been heavily involved in that property industry, and a lot of it's been around, listing and selling, residential, rural or prestige property, or now rolling into that buyer agency space of, buying property for people. It might be, an owner-occupier, it might be an investment, it might be someone that's looking to buy something that they can add value to down the track, So for me, JLH was born out of probably the passion of being in property. When I sat down and reviewed, what are we going to do? Do I want to stay in? Do I want to build my own agency? Like for me, buyer agency was brilliant because I love working with buyers. I've got strong relationships with agents. Like for me, it was a really good mix of where I wanted to be.
So the way I met you was through Mike Edwards, and he mentioned, and one of the conversations that we had in there was about buyers agents. And look, I've met a few buyers agents over the years, and it's one of the conversations that I think is almost integral now to anybody who's trying to buy a house, whether it's a first home buyer all the way through to a vet, I think. And what we want to do is trying to explain to these people who don't know what a buyer's agent is and how important it is to get them involved. How quick should somebody contact you, and why should they contact you?
I think for me, it's more about how quick. It really is determined by the individual. Like a lot of people want to come in and try this process themselves. I think it's an opportunity where you want people like myself or other buyers agents, wherever you have that relationship. It doesn't have to be me. Like you're going to have relationships or get referred to others, but it's going to be, if you're very serious about trying to transact into that property market, bringing in a support straight away. Yep. Because while we're in these shifting markets, not having someone come in that can really provide that support from start to finish, that's that vulnerable period where you can miss out on one or multiple homes. And we see, and we were chatting off mic before, but it's one of those markets where you miss out on a couple of properties and we see such a strong shift in the market. We can then, you turn around and look at that and go, well, if I had the right support, or I had the right person behind me doing the due diligence or doing the searches on properties for me while the said person's at work, that can be a big difference in price straight away, So I think for people that are looking at getting in the market and very keen to be moving forward, I'd be looking in that having someone as an advocate sooner rather than later because of these shifting natures that we see in our marketplace, you know?
Absolutely. You're right. We were having a long chat, a great chat up before the mics were turned on. But I think one of the I guess the resonating issues is that everyone says that a buyer's agent's fee is like heaps, but nobody ever sees the value until it's right down the track.
Too late.
That's exactly right. So somebody could be like, oh, I don't need a buyer's agent, and say, you know, I could go and find a house and I can go and do the talk, and then all of a sudden they're 6 months down the track, and then, you know, they still haven't bought one. Whereas if they get someone like yourself that's bang on, knows the people, can have that chat and have that support, they can go about their normal day, and then you come out and say, hey, look at these great things.
And you look at a prime example, like where you're located here in around Cardiff South. You know, if people were looking in around here, you know, 6 months ago, 8 months ago even, and hadn't purchased because they kept missing out, like they would have been looking at a market that was probably early to mid eights. Those same properties now we're looking at realistically, you know, circa mid nines, depending on where you're sitting in Cardiff or Cardiff South. Like the fee, yes, that's payable by us on a property that they decide to move forward on. When you look at that fee comparative to how much that market moves, it's minute. And that's the difference between getting into the market and out of the market. And it depends on, and it's also the difference between whether that person's an investor or an owner-occupier, they're going to add value, because that's where you're going to see even more growth depending on who that purchaser is and what they're trying to achieve. So, you know, effectively, our fee can look quite expensive up front, but the return on investment is, well, if you keep missing out, our fee looks inexpensive, or our fee looks inexpensive if we get in and we find the right property through the right strategy and the advice early, then you can sit there and you watch the growth. We look back in 12 months' time and go, well, that was
money well spent.
It was money well spent.
100%.
The same as us, like, you know, what you do with consultancy or we go to doctors, things like that. You always use someone that you know and trust that's going to give you the right level of advice to allow you to get from A to B. That's effectively what we're doing, but what we're trying to do is speed it up. So we're not, you know, time in market, a long time in market is a cost in the market, you know, effectively for people.
Well, absolutely. Holding costs, rental income, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so a few things there. What is a fee that somebody can almost expect? And what happens with that fee? Over what period, and what can they expect for their money?
I think, well, I can only speak for myself, but I know there's a lot of buyers agents in Newcastle that operate the same, where you have a nominal upfront retainer. And the retainer upfront's just that commitment to go, hey, you know, Matt, you and the family, you're on this journey with me. There's buy-in from me. Okay, now we're moving forward. And the moving forward is then starting to get the process. So the retainer upfront, you know, the agreement up front, all that commitment is to say, hey, we've got buy-in here. We're all on this journey together. And, you know, collaboratively, we're going to make it work. And then once that's engaged, I would say most buyers agents across Newcastle work on a flat fee. You know, whether the retainer's included in that flat fee. I know there's some that charge a flat fee in addition to the retainer. Mine's always included in it. It's then about sitting down with the clients and going, hey, let's build this strategy out. You know, what's your end goal? Is this property going to be a stepping stone, or is it going to be a long-term hold? Is it an owner-occ? Is it an investment? Do we want to add value? And we build that strategy with them to get real clarity on what we're looking at, what price points they want to be in, because that's effectively going to know. It's effectively going to allow me to have clarity around these are the suburbs we're going to be looking in. You know, there's no point having a budget for $900,000 and we want a freestanding home and we want to be in Merriweather, because we know that shift is long gone. So it's being really clear of knowing straight away, what is our budget? What do we want to achieve? Where would we like to be? Triage that through and go, these are our preferred suburbs. If it was getting tight, okay, we're going to drop into this band of suburbs, and et cetera, so that we can be nimble enough to allow ourselves to pivot should something come up, you know. And that's that first part of it. And then from there, it's about building those briefs and having two briefs, one that goes out to all the agents, and then the second brief is a bit more targeted to the agents that are specific to those suburbs. And then it's sitting down and, reviewing properties. What's this property? What does it offer? And a lot of stuff, Matt, I do first before I even go and sit and look. Because I know from being an agent, there is nothing worse than back in the day having buyers agents come through and them having no interest. I want to be able to ring someone, if you're an agent, go, hey, Matt, all right, I've already looked at flood studies, mine subsidence, I've looked at bushfire bow ratings, I've looked at heritage overlays, I've looked at zoning, things like this. This really ticks all our boxes. What opportunities have you got coming up that are going to allow me to come through, have a look, do photos, videos, so I can provide, like you do, content to my clients so that they can sit down and make a more informed decision. And then it's triaging property.
G'day guys, just quickly, if you're finding this podcast info relevant to you, then I'd like to quickly talk to you about what we do at MT Design Collective. You hear us talk all the time about the importance of solid detailed home design practices so that you're not left with extra fees, delays or unexpected costs in building your ultimate home. Here at MTDC, we design homes and provide plans that builders love to build and councils love to approve. If you're looking at a renovation, a new build or alteration, then we'd love to help you work out the next steps forward. Book a free, no obligation chat with us and we'll come out to your site, as it's the only way to truly get authentic, no bullshit advice. Link is in the show notes. Okay, back to the show. You've just touched on so many incredibly important points, and I mean, based on, okay, first off, I'll qualify the whole situation. The fact that you do all of that is a massive support for all clients, and it doesn't matter how, if they're going to renovate, if they're going to build, if they're going to knock down and rebuild, you're doing those searches for them, and you're presenting them basically, hey, these are the problems with your block, and these are the things that you're going to face. Based on your price range and your location, these are the things, which means most of our job as a designer and I guess all of the subcontractors after that can use that information, and anything that they kind of come up with us when we go to do the designs isn't going to be a flag. It's not going to be a problem. They're not going to be like, oh, I didn't know it was bushfire. I didn't know it was flood. You've already done all the hard work. And I mean, I can only talk from like my own experience as a first home buyer. I'm in the industry and I've spent my time here. I can do all the checks and I've done all the bits and pieces. And even having that experience in the industry, when buying the first home, I don't have the real estate experience. I don't have the people like yourself. And unfortunately, I didn't make the choice to do the buyer's agent when I first bought my house. Knowing what I know now, I 100% would have. It would have saved me 6 months, 3 months of heartache. My partner and I were going to all these. We booked out every weekend for 3 months to try and see all these houses. And I'll scare you a bit. We went looking for a house just as the COVID lockdown started happening. Oh, yes. So
we can all laugh about that because we know exactly what it was like. Yeah.
But everybody was there. It was just before the lockdowns happened. So 50 people were rocking up to these houses, and I was saying to my partner, no, don't buy now. The market will dip. And she was like, no way. We're getting in there. I listened to my partner as all good blokes should. And then, the house from when we bought it increased by 40%. But if I got someone like yourself involved, we would have saved all that drama, all that heartache in that first 6 months.
The beauty of that, and unpacking a bit of what you just said there, the beauty of that is we wouldn't be going and looking at 40 or 50 properties because we would have already done the research over here. Medical term, we would have gone through and triaged of high priority which properties were 1, 2, 3, 4, for whatever reasons why. We've already done the due diligence in the background. So we're only going to look at potentially between 1 and 5 properties because they're the ones that are on our radar that suit our brief, suit the strategy that we want to deliver long term. They're within our budget from the searches that we've done. So we can go, well, that's the way we're going. Instead of having, the emotional roller coaster of going up and down because we're going through all these properties and there's a high volume of people and you don't know, are they interested? Yes, they're not. Are they first home buyers? Are they looking at investment? We do all this work, so we just clearly focus on ourselves. And I mean, that's one part of it. And the other part of it we haven't even unpacked or spoken is the pricing side. Is it off market? Is it pre-market? Is it an off-market, pre-market, but we know it's going to get into a campaign depending on which agents it is? Are we showing interest early? Are we just going to sit back and wait? There's so much there that we can that comes into play before we even get to the property's front door, you know?
Yeah, you beat me to it. I was going to talk to you about, you know, the price savings and the things that you guys would have access to. Unless somebody has a direct relationship with a real estate agent, you guys have that knowledge of whether or not it is off market. And I think we should explain what an off market is, and I guess the pre-sale stuff. For those who don't understand, I guess the sales system and what real estates go through before it goes to market. Can you explain that in a bit of detail for the guys listening?
Well, really lightly, I think more the off. When I look at off market, is it a genuine off market? Like, is it an opportunity where the vendor has no beneficial interest in wanting to go to the market for whatever reasons? It might, not so much a family estate, because normally if there's multiple beneficiaries, it's more going to go to the market, and it could be under auction terms and conditions to keep everything fair. But there might be reasons whereby vendors go, look, we just don't want to go to the market, and it's a genuine off market. And they're the ones that you might sit back and, depending on price, what the property offers, comparative sales, you might bring that into consideration. But then you'll have off markets where there's some agents will probably go, hey, yep, look, we're going to run it off market. We want to do a bit of a preview. We want to get a bit of an understanding of what the market's doing, what pricing's happening in the market, with the view to go to the market. I don't mind. That's fine, because they'll let me know in advance. All that does is allow me a bit more time to do some due diligence. And there's clarity around it, like the old-fashioned saying, clear as kind. Like, if I've got clarity around it's definitely going to the market, that's cool, because I'll just turn around and say to you guys, hey, Matt, this is one that we're definitely going to be looking at. These are the reasons why, but it's going to be going to the market. Let's just wait, and we'll go and review it when the time's right. So it's, it's understanding the true terminology around what is a genuine off-market, or what is an off-market where some agents in the market are more just building interest to take it to the next stage, which for them is getting staging, marketing, photos, all those to bring it into that first week of a campaign, And
it's interesting to see, I guess, the industry shift at the moment, because I think they've come down on the real estate agents underquoting a house and things like that, which keeps you guys even more front and center, because you can do all your due diligence and making sure of the prices. What can you recommend to anybody who comes out and sees you, if they turn around and say, hey, I'm a new home buyer, but I want to build granny flats, or I am looking at developing it eventually? Is that something that you consider when you go?
Yeah, look, I've worked with a couple of clients that we've looked where the value add options maybe not so much a renovation, but it's adding a granny flat. So, consistent with what you do, it's understanding Newcastle City Council, Lake Macquarie City Councils, understanding zonings, what the client's appetite to risk is to adding the granny flat, and what is that going to form in their strategy? Like, is it going to be a long-term investment for them, and that's what they want to do? So it's understanding that dynamic too, with them going, okay, if we do this and you look at deciding to sell, where we might be looking at a limited market when you buy, is that the best option, or are we looking at better off something that you can go and renovate down the track? And when you decide to sell, because they might be going, well, look, we're going to sell it in 5 or 6 years. And when you decide to sell, then you're opening it up to first home buyers, downsizers potentially, depending on where you are, investors, et cetera, et cetera. Like, you're opening yourself up to a bigger market. But granny flats has obviously been a big one lately because of the increase in yield. And capital growth around these areas is still quite strong, even when we sort of bring, a 1 into a 2. It's still quite strong for clients. I think the strategy around that is depending on the individual, and I've had multiple clients look at it. But again, it's looking at all those overlays that we spoke about at first, understanding zonings, working in conjunction with a couple of planners to say, hey, can you do a bit of a quick review of this and go, yes, it's feasible, or no, it's not. If it's feasible, right, we keep moving forward. No, it's not. We put it away and we pivot and go to the next one.
So you do all that for the clients?
Yeah.
So we had Paige from PAC a couple of weeks ago, and she was mentioning how important it is to get the planners involved and things like that, and have that conversation about the due diligence on the block. And it's awesome. Like, they've got, I guess, clients and people who are looking to buy have this one stop. Your service is I think is a fundamentally underutilized service in the industry.
Well, I put it to you like this, Matt. There's nothing you think, if you're on the agent on the other side, like I used to be, and you've got a buyer's agent comes to you and go, hey, we're really keen on this place. We've done all the searches. We're moving forward to exchange. And then the client pulls in, you're like, why? Oh, this doesn't work or that doesn't work. As opposed to you being a buyer's agent, it's really proficient. It's a couple of extra layers in the conversation you got to do, and it's a bit more due diligence, but they're involved with you every step of the way to get to there and go, no, we've done all that work. We can move forward. That relationship with the agent then becomes stronger, because the next time you say, hey, I've got a brief, this is what we're looking for, what have you got coming up, or what's coming to the market, et cetera, they're going to be more open to sharing with you what they got coming up, because they're like, this guy's a professional at what he does.
And you're there looking after your clients.
It's in the best interest of the clients.
Absolutely.
And you don't look, then I suppose I'll look at it and go, you're not doing your job.
Yeah.
You're not professional, because if they come back to you and go, well, why didn't you look at that? That's not a good look to have, you know.
If they're going to and clients, people who are not in the industry don't know what they don't know.
Correct.
And when they go and look at a house, they go, and I hear it a million times. Actually, I've got examples up to my ear holes about it. But I mean, one client in particular, she's an absolutely amazing lady. Bought this place, didn't ask anybody about it. She already put an offer in it, and she called me up just out of the blue, and she's like, "Hey, I want you to come and have a look at this house for me." I said, "Not a problem, come and visit." I came out and visit, and she's like, "Oh, these are the things that I want to do with the block." The place was a goat track. It was up on stilts, and there was no drainage. The place was falling down around, and it's one of those things that, you know. While they did get the building and pest inspection, and then there was a few mold issues, that the problem was that there wasn't or couldn't have been a check on, I guess, the block and the usage and all the bits and pieces, because they had no one there to support them.
Yeah, depending on which way it slopes. Is it sloping to curb and gutter? Is it sloping away? Where's your easements? Where's sewerage run? Stormwater? All those things.
Absolutely. And then this poor lady, she ended up, and I warned her about all of the drainage issues and all the things that was going to be a thing. And after 6 months, I get another phone call from her. She's like, "Look, I've sold the house. You're right. Place got flooded. We've bought another place." And they bought another place, and then she ended up buying another block, but this was a block out at Whitebridge, and they were incredibly tight, very, very small, and they had a huge fall on it. And would you believe it? It was off the plan. So there was an off the plan for the players at home is a house that's not built, civils haven't been done, boundaries have just been sorted out. She couldn't read the linen plan, and she didn't understand the fall and how tight the block was, and it was a corner block. So this was all things wrong with this poor block, and this poor lady spent all this money on this block. And she comes in and goes, "Matt, I bought this great block, this great place," and all of a sudden I was like, "You can't build anything on it, because you're gonna have a split, and you've got height restrictions and all this kind of stuff." And these are the things that I think where you guys would be, you know, incredibly important, because it would have saved her hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not a small portion, but she wouldn't have paid all this money to buy one block, and then she wouldn't have paid all this money to put a deposit on a linen plan off the plan. So it's not even ready to be built yet. There's so many sunset clauses, and the civils haven't even been done.
Yeah, and you look at that. All right, that is a case study. Yeah. Everyone's situation changes in life. We know that. Things can change in an instant.
Sure.
But had she had the right advice at the start, would she have purchased property A? Probably not. And she wouldn't then be going to property B. So if she had proper support and guidance around her going, hey, what do you really want to achieve? What's your plan? Where do you want to be? Why? You know, what suburbs appeal to you? What's the long-term goal? Is this going to be a short-term purchase, or is this somewhere you want to be? Then the strategy is going to be completely different, and her goals and the needs and wants of what she wants to achieve in it are going to be completely different. And that support would probably put her in a completely different property in a completely different suburb and potentially still in it.
Yeah, and happy, right? And not having to worry about it. And yeah, due diligence, support, and people who know something about something would be able to help this situation. Based on that, what are the key fundamentals that you would recommend that any first home buyer consider before either even coming to you or even considering the market?
I think first thing in the current market, with where, like, as we sit here now and where interest rates are at, I think making sure you got a proper pre-approval.
Yeah.
And not just one, Matt, where you go in and say, hey, look, what can we borrow? It's getting things properly assessed, like making sure that they've reviewed statements, you've been properly serviced, things like that, so that when you do find the right property, you're in a stronger position to be able to move forward quicker, meaning going from, a pre-approval to being unconditionally approved or conditionally approved on your mortgage. I think that's imperative. And I think even before is starting to scope and understand what the markets are doing, from suburb to suburb. And every suburb's got micro markets within those suburbs. Like look at Cardiff, look at New Lambton, Hamilton, all those, and Merewether too. Like all those suburbs have little micro markets within the macro market of the suburb itself. So I think it's having a really clear understanding of going, well, what's our budget? What do we want to achieve personally? Start to do a little bit of due diligence on those suburbs so that you can actually come into it in an emotionally stable position and be able to move forward, as opposed to coming into it somewhat blind and then seeing potentially some of your goals disappear because of what and how the market's performing,
It's going to, at the moment, the volatility in the market is going crazy.
Yeah.
Cost of living is going even crazier. It's going to be a thing, and it's understandable. But understanding that there are blue chip areas, what are the recommendations that you would give these first home buyers to consider outside of these blue chip areas? You hear all the time, obviously, if you can't afford the blue chip areas, start looking outside.
I think it's like a ripple effect.
Yeah.
Like we know the market here over the years has grown, and it's, like we've got the east coast of Australia on one side, we're heavily governed by, vegetation, land and all that on the other side. So it's only going to go one way. So my thing is have some understanding about what those markets are doing. And if you can't afford in those markets, you might turn around and again go, well, is this purchase going to be a stepping stone?
Yeah.
We might be better off buying one or two suburbs out. We get a little bit more value in what we can get in that property. Let's do some work to it, or let's sit on it for a while and we'll use that as a stepping stone to get into where we want to be, as opposed to pushing ourselves to get in where we need to be, unless you have to for whatever reasons it might be, and everyone's different. But you might turn around and go, instead of pushing ourselves to be, in, for example, go back to your Dudley Whitebridge, instead of being in those suburbs and pushing ourselves to get into those suburbs, which have become quite expensive, maybe we take a couple of layers off it and we move back into Charlestown, get the growth out of Charlestown with the view to have a stepping stone at some stage to move into Dudley Whitebridge, those areas. And
Charlestown's going up as well. Yeah. So there's a lot going on around these 15-minute cities. Like it's starting to happen. And, and I think paying attention to where these little city hubs are starting to poke up are going to be almost integral to purchases and buyers around, because places like Charlestown, Katara, we can even go down to Sydney, you go Mount Colah, or you go to Barrow and things like that. They're all becoming, or even Hornsby, like they're all becoming these little hubs where you don't have to go much further out of your home. These 15 minutes out of your home, you're going to have these services. Do you see this kind of almost reflecting in property sales and going further out, I guess, to Cessnock and further? Yeah, look, some of our most recent acquisitions have been further up the valley because it's, for clients, they're price sensitive. So we look at it and go, well, what do you really want to achieve? And everyone wants that footprint. Okay, well, if we're going to be looking at that same sort of money, your footprint closer to town is probably going to be a 2-bedroom apartment. It might be a small villa. Or would you prefer to have something where you've got space and room to move? So looking at some of those outer areas like Gilliston Heights through to Curry, through to Cessnock, Brankston Huntlee, there's a lot of opportunities in those. And again, price sensitive, you're sitting in mid to high 8s or early 9s, depending on what the property is and what it offers. Well, that's out of Huntlee now. So they're pumping out a lot of estates out of Huntlee, and I think there's another one just going across the freeway out there as well now. And I mean, blocks are going for houses and blocks are going for about 850 and things like that. So like it's going up, and I mean people like once upon a time, about 10 years ago, everyone was like, I don't want to go out to Cessnock, it's too far away from the city. But here we are, 10 years later, and everyone's like, you know what, I'm going to go out to Cessnock.
I remember selling property here. I remember selling properties in Brankston between 100 and 200,000. Like if you told someone that, they'd be like, you're mad.
Yeah.
And no one would buy, people would buy in Brankston because that's where they wanted to live. And there's no issue with that. But, a lot of people were Singleton or Maitland or those Cessnock, those associated areas. But now you look at that infill like we talked before, like those markets have changed now, like house and land packages around Lochinvar, like you said, high 8s, early to mid 9s, depending on the size of the land. Some of them are around early millions now. I'm old. I'm 45. I'm not going to lie. Back in my day. But when I was selling, when we were selling in Singleton, some of those places were, between 100 and 200,000. That's great. On a couple of thousand square metres. Like,
that's incredible.
You'd hate to think what that same property would be worth now.
Do you think Newcastle will ever see, a cost of living or house cost as the same as Sydney?
I don't know. It's hard to say. Hey, like I think if you look at where Newcastle is today compared to where it was, 10 years ago, like even well before pre-COVID, back when we were seeing a lot of the development, like when I was at Colliers and we're seeing a lot of that development from Toma coming through, the apartment markets like Loom, Huntington, then Horizon. We had East End Stage 1, and I think well before that, people were like, oh, this is going to be interesting. How's the market going to handle it? Are we going to see an oversupply? Is it going to become saturated? But then we look at where that market's gone now, and, developments have come through. They've been beautifully built. Apartments are rented or, they've been owner-occupied. There's nothing to say that we can't at some stage end up on a smaller scale, very similar to Sydney, Well, because I think a lot of people, I've a lot of friends that sort of move this way because of affordability and connectivity to, good schools, your beaches, things like that,
Well, it's like coming from Sydney, I was getting really overcrowded and a lot of really populated. We moved up to the Central Coast, and the Central Coast has been kind of like this, this quiet little section in between Newcastle and Sydney, and we're finding as a design business that we're going a lot down to the Central Coast now. People are starting to fill out the Gillibies and the Uminers and really find. I can't believe it. I went to Umina a couple of days ago, and back when I was there was blocks and there was space. But I went out there, like I said, a couple of days ago, and there's just units, and then there's townhouses, and they've just really squeezed every single inch out of this little space, and it's just incredible. And you can't do too much outside of that little valley space of Umina Beach and I guess Ettalong and all that kind of stuff, because that's all the way down that hill. But I guess like when you start coming up, they're just going to start building it further and further. So what are the things that you need to watch out? What would you recommend people watch out for when looking for a place
to purchase themselves? I think it's hard because a lot of it is what we do. But I would probably say, for someone that's coming into the market now, it probably goes back to what we were talking about before. Start to get an idea of what the market's doing. Start to look at not as much as all the properties that are coming on the market. Start to look at what's selling. And get some clarity around that. For myself as an agent, you take that for granted because as soon as the price comes on, the first thing I do is I go and look at realestate.com and Domain and start to look at properties that are sold. And not just anything, things that are consistent. Is it a 3-1-1 or is it a 4-2-2? What's the size of that parcel of land? Which way does it slope? How many living areas, like that 80% living area where most people live, looking at all those and go, okay, what's consistently selling like that and what is those price ranges? So my first thing would be is get clarity on what's happening in the market, what's selling in those pockets you want to be in, first and foremost, because that's going to give you a very clear understanding when you turn up to open homes or you see properties start to come on the market, you can start to have an assessment straight away of going, okay, yep, it's guided for X. I think it's going to be around X plus Y.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think that's probably the key thing for a lot of people coming into the market, because that's probably the first, like a steeplechase, it's going to be the first hurdle that you've got to understand before you even get into the depths of how to market, how's the agent marketing it, is it a private treaty or is it an auction? Is it an agent that's going to take it, will take it to an auction, or is it an agent that's probably going to work through 80% of the campaign and depending on the level of interest might pull the trigger early? Like, there's so many factors that you've got to take into consideration there. But I think the first bit is understanding price and the pricing of the markets you want to be in reflective to what your budget is.
And I think there's a few points on that one too that are really exciting to talk about. So you mentioned there 4, 2 and 2 and 3, 1, 1 for players at home. That's 3 bedrooms. That's 3 bedroom, 1 bathroom, 1 garage, or so on and so forth. But 4 bedroom, 2 bathroom, 2 garage. But when watching for prices, it's very unlikely that you'll ever see a price dip. But you basically want to make sure that, if you're watching a house, you want to know how long it's been on the market and things like that.
Days on market, things like that, and you start to get consistency.
Yeah.
But the hard thing, for potentially people at home or listening to what we're talking about here, they'll do this for a small window of the week.
Yeah.
Like Saturday or, like a Saturday or a Sunday night, they're going to sit there and go, hey, Dale, look what I found, or I found this, this sold or this sold. Monday comes and we're both the same. We've got families. It becomes game on for everyone.
Yeah.
And the next time they genuinely get an opportunity to probably reassess it is maybe late one evening when they finally don't have sport or dancing or whatever the children might be doing or their own sport or commitments or work commitments. But there's so much probably happened in that period of time.
Yeah.
Whereas for us, that's what we're doing every day of the week.
It's a job.
That is literally, while someone's at work, that's what we're here to do. And I think that's where we get a clearer assessment of what's happening in markets, because, again, we're looking at comparable properties every day of the week. We're looking at what are the days on market, what are the auction clearance rates, were they properties that sold quick for certain reasons, things like that. Like, you're looking at a lot of factors that are contributing to those sales so that you can start to get a clearer assessment of where are we trending in these different suburbs, Well,
the beautiful thing about what you do is that you could be talking to an agent, you'd have mates in the agencies and all the bits and pieces, and then while you're looking for one place for one client, it might not be suitable for them, but you'd have it in the bank and you'd be like, the next person that comes and sees you, they ask for a 3, 2 and 2, and you go, I've got one just here.
Yeah.
How good is that?
And that's a big part of being in this industry every day of the week and doing it as a professional is there's collating all those properties coming up. So when you are working with new clients, you can look at those. Granted, some of them will already be sold given, how the market's moving, but you can then provide evidence to those clients to say, okay, here's one, it sold off market. This is how many days on the market it was. This is how many people came through it, et cetera, et cetera. Or it could be a case of, okay, I viewed this one off market. This was the guide that was suggested. This is what it sold for, but it sold for this because it had 20-something groups come through the door, or it had 5 registered bidders, or it had 3 people bidding at auction on auction day. So you can give people evidence and data to make their decision-making more confident,
I'll never forget it. Like when we were buying our first place, I'd be at work, and then my partner she'd message me. It would be Monday night, and she'd be like, "Watch out! Tomorrow, Tuesday, the new list of all the houses are going to be all posted." And then I know damn well that like on Tuesday she's there, she's smashing through it and sending me all the new ones, and then she's like booking out. And we had a schedule, we had a timeline. She's like, right, this is good, this is nice, this is good, and it was just a lot. It was just a lot, and I just if I knew about a buyer's agent back then, it would just take so much stress. And,
and we set up all the alerts. I tell the clients, hey, make sure you set up your own alerts. But then I set up a page for them as well. Yeah. And I check it every morning and every night to make sure that we're not missing anything,
Yeah. How do you think the housing market at the moment is going to go? Do you think we're going to go up? Do you think we're going to stagnate a little bit? What's it's a crystal ball
thanks
question.
For a loaded question.
Yeah, sorry.
I think I've been lucky enough to probably have been in the industry where I've seen so much change for a long time. Like from when I came in to the industry in September 2000 to now, like we had GFC when I was up the valley. There was a big mining change where Glencore came in, took over Xstrata. So we saw a lot of the workforce go from somewhat part time. They were on different contracts, different awards. We had people on full time work. So there was a big shift through that period, and there was a lot of movements through the different mines. So between GFC, seeing that period. We've also had COVID. We've had a period where we all sat through all the interest rate rises. What was it? 13 interest rate rises over 18 months. Then we saw the rates come back down, and now we're sort of going back up. The one thing we've always seen with Newcastle, and if I look at it historically or even those markets back up the valley, they've always continued to progress forward. It's probably the polite way to put it. Like they've always continued to do well. And I think a big part of that, especially for us here in Newcastle, is a lot of what we offer at Newcastle as a whole, but also it's the supply and demand. I think at the moment in the market, there's so many buyers in the market. We're still not seeing a huge volume of property come to the market. So, while we're still seeing that, the supply and demand having that probably it's out of balance or it's outweighing each other, I think until a lot of that gets absorbed into the market, we won't see a real settling period of, okay, what is the market going to be like? I think we won't see that for potentially 6 months. So I think, if we look historically, our markets have always continued to perform well. Like they've been a bit like, I don't know, set of steps. They've gone up, then we might just settle for a bit. Then they'll go again, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I mean, I hear all the time that we're the canary in the coal mine, right? So we would know before the builders know if the things are starting to die down. But I would almost argue that you guys would be.
Well, I reckon we would probably start to see it before anyone else because we go into the open homes, we're working with buyers. You're starting to see, go and look at a property at a preview. You might normally see 10 or 12 people there. You might only start to see 5 to 6. You might start to get to the open homes, for example, like Cardiff, where predominantly in the past we've seen anywhere from 30 to 60 groups through property. You might start to see 15 to 25 groups through, So, people's appetite to purchase, their tolerance to risk, things like that can change how that market's going to perform or what could be happening, which is what we're going to see because we're on the ground first, and if we start to see some of that peel back or a few of those layers peel back, especially if you're looking at properties that are consistent with each other, that's usually a pretty good sign of
what's going on. Yeah, sure. So so all of that, what I'm kind of gathering, and I guess to put a hard and fast label on it, like there's no better time, and it's always been the rule, right? There's no better time to get in the market than right now. Like holding off and expecting things to dip and muck around, it's
use yourself. COVID. Yeah. If you sat on the fence,
we'd been out.
Not to throw it back at your own podcast.
Let's do it.
But if you look at your case as a prime example, if you decided to sit on the fence. And your wife didn't ring me before. No. It's okay.
No, so to this day, this is 6 years ago, to this day, she still throws it in my face.
I could imagine. Okay. But if you sat on the fence as opposed to jumping in, your situation could be completely different.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the thing. People have got to look at what is it going to mean to them? Why are they doing it? And yes, now's the right time, but it's got to be the right time for that person, And I think the same, like we'll see similar to COVID and things like that, we're going to see interest rates rise, whatever, happens from a government perspective, we'll save that for a rainy day. But, whatever happens there, you're still going to have investors that will go, this is hardened investors will still go, this is a perfect opportunity for us to get into the market.
Yeah.
Yes, we're going to have to deal with interest rates. They're variables. They're out of our control. The way that they're not out of our control is if we control what and how we spend and the buffers that we put in place before we buy that investment.
Yeah.
So you still can control the uncontrolled somewhat, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's right.
But those hardened investors are still going to come into the market. And then when all this settles down and we've got the people that are sitting on the fence because they're a bit nervous or they're unsure or they may not have those buffers, they come back in. Then we see that market change again, and those that got in early, they'll ride that bit of a change in the market.
And it's just a rinse and repeat situation. Like
Yeah.
Every time there is a threat of a dip, like the investors, the developers, they go, right on, we'll jump on that.
This is finally an opportunity for them to be able to get into the market. You know?
Well, the guys that I've talked to, because I'm in a few developing groups, and I have a great chat with a lot of them, and like a lot of the conversation is, hey, the market's going to start slowing up. Just hold off for a second. Once it slows up, buy that block, sit on it for a bit, and then once it all ticks back up, everybody starts rocking and rolling again.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. It's just the nature of the beast. What do you think of, I guess the first home owners grant and the things that the government's putting in place for the first home buyers to get into the market?
Oh, I think it's been needed, realistically. I think especially in these markets, you look at how much it's changed, and without some of those incentives, they wouldn't be able to get into the market. But all it's done is really heat up that section of the market to actually make it quite difficult to buy. So it's sort of like a double-edged sword. It's giving you an opportunity, it's giving you a leg up, it's giving you those opportunities, incentives to come into the market, but now you're coming into the hardest market to buy in.
Yeah.
Because if you look at a ratio, 8 out of 10 people can afford that part of the market. So, I've seen incentives before in the past. In early 2000s when the original first home buyers grant come out. Remember, it was 7,000 for a first home buyer, 14 for a new build.
Yeah.
And it brought more people into the market. But what it did, even back in those days, it created that part of the market to be the most hotly contested part of the market, which effectively then drives price up.
Well, you see it around the area now. So, I mean, back a couple of years ago, they brought out that 5% deposit and all that kind of stuff, and then they said, 5% only on $700,000 houses.
Yep.
So everybody in the $700,000 market and first home buyer,
how good's this?
Yeah, it just went, fantastic. Thank you very much. Everything just jumps up. Thank you very much for coming. And then now they've brought out another one, 5%. I think it's a little bit more deposit, but then they've increased the amount. You can do a 5% deposit on $1 million.
Yep.
I don't know many people who can afford, a $1 million minus the 5% mortgage. That's incredibly
And that's
expensive.
the other bit. Like you bring in the serviceability element,
Yeah.
like the HEM calculator, like the household expenditure metric. You do bring in all those things. It really comes down to the individual going, actually, can I feel comfortable in servicing this loan?
Yeah.
And again, the buffer's in place. If rates change as a family dynamic, can we handle and weather those changes? So it becomes a real personal decision around your family and your family dynamic to go, is this going to be achievable? Or are we better off trying to buy something for a bit less? Yes, it's not going to be everything we want, but it becomes a stepping stone. We've still got the buffers. We can still enjoy life and do the things that we want to do. It might not be the best property at the moment, but it's going to be the best property that suits our needs and wants,
And I mean, in Australia, we're pretty lucky. It's not very often that a house depreciates in value. So I mean, jumping into the market and just living there or sticking it out for a little bit, doing a couple of renos here and there will always boost that income. And particularly if they're going to start putting if their block's big enough and they can do that granite flat or that studio at the back and make that money.
And they're the big conversation I always have. Say, hey guys, look, is this going to be your forever home?
They're the things.
95% of people go, no, unless it's a downsizer. And then it's a completely different conversation. But if it's not going to be your forever home, what are the things that we can sit down and you're comfortable to be able to do and you think you can facilitate and handle, whether it's paint, carpet, small cosmetic renovation, because they're all going to add value, That's going to add value. That adds a bit of capital growth. Your property's then growing at a different rate compared to when you bought it because it's now renovated. It's then a case of, well, let's watch this over a period of time, and then it might be a reassessment and go, hey, your property's worth this. Why don't we look at, I'm not a financial advisor, but most people that I deal with have that financial support. It might be a case of, let's review it. This is what I think your property's worth in the current market. Go and sit down with your financial advisor, get an idea of where you're at. That might change it to go, okay, well, let's sell now and look at where we wanted to be.
Well, depending on how much is appreciated as well, there's the equity in it. You can potentially use it as an investment income, and then you can get another.
And that's the thing. There's a myriad of things that they can put together with that extra layer of support, in addition to someone like myself, to go, what are these next decisions and how do they look?
Yeah, and it's a game changer. It's an absolute game changer for people who have no idea about the industry. Getting someone like yourself involved, buying a house, sitting on it, because you're going to be aware of the market trends. People don't know what they don't know. Once you put them in a good spot, or you listen to it and ask all the questions, that place will 100% or 98% appreciate in the value depending on what they've done, and then they use that, like you've said, and stepping stones and moving on to
and I think that's the big thing. Like, a lot of people go, a buyer's agent, they just buy a property. No. And actually, I had a testimonial come out the other day, and I don't have it on me. Yeah. But the lady had been looking for a fair while, nearly 12 months.
Wow.
Before she got referred to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, ended up great relationship, found a cracking property for her. Super stoked, and we actually talk a fair bit. She's always like, what can I do here, things like that. So it's great. But I look at it and go, had she bought 12 months prior with the right support, she probably could have been in a completely different suburb. And as it was, we got into Georgetown, which is a great pocket for her. But absolutely. Yeah. But I look at it and go, had she had the right level of support or that trusted advice 12 months before, she'd probably be in a completely different suburb,
Yeah, it's a difference, right?
That's right. And her testimonial, it's funny because it's, I've had a few doozies if you go and have a look. But hers was, I asked myself a question, what does a buyer agent do? And that's how she started the testimonial. And then she went into the whole rest of, obviously, a lot of what we discussed today, the support, taking accountability to be able to help, understanding the markets, looking at properties in different areas, and then, triaging what we think's best, suiting to her needs and wants, but also looking at it and going, well, is that going to provide a stepping stone down the track, or can you see yourself here long term? It's all that we've discussed.
It's all there, and I think it's important. Like, I mean, you've got your first home buyers who don't know what they don't know. Then you've got your mums and dads who have probably been in the market for a bit and they were looking to upgrade a little bit, or you've got mum and dad coming to move back in or something or other, and then you start to age that demographic, and then they turn from these big massive families where they're entertaining all these people all the time, and then they're downgrading. Yeah. So there's this, like you said, there's just a myriad of people who need your support through from never buying a house to buying their last house, and there's so many questions and things that they wouldn't think about that you would have, that you've got the experience and knowledge to be able to answer these questions and give them the answer appropriately. So I think your industry and I guess your profession is severely underutilized, and I definitely think people should be reaching out to buyers agents.
And I look at it too, like having been an agent through those exploding periods where we were running 5 and 6 open homes a day, and you would have easily 20 to 30 people turn up to those open homes. In a lot of cases, at each different open home was a different group of people. So by the end of the day, you've probably met 150 plus people, but you've only showed 5 or 6 places. There's only 5 or 6 buyers, so your opportunity is there to help. It's not the top 5 or 6. The opportunity of where we are is to help all those other buyers get to a level where they can be part of that 5 or 6.
Do you know, I think one of my favorite bits about a buyer's agent is that you're not arguing or pretending to fight with this possibly other bidder. You know what I mean? So you take that. Are we fighting with another bidder, or are we actually just boosting the price for the real estate, or are we giving them an extra percentage? You know what I mean? Like, I think having you guys involved takes that I guess that grimy feeling out of buying a house or whatever, because you would have that. You'd have that conversation, and that conversation, by the time you reach it to those clients, it's already fleshed out. It's already, hey, this is the prices they're going to settle on. Let's do it or let's not do it. Yeah. It takes that conversation that people don't know and makes it clear and available, and I think that's great.
That's it. And I mean, negotiation is a big part of it too. But it's understanding the agent, understanding pricing, understanding where we see value in it, and what and how we're going to achieve securing this property, you know, and creating a bit of a plan around what and how we're going to negotiate and what are the reasons why, you know?
Yeah, anecdotally, again, I remember buying our place, and I remember there's a particular real estate agent that we worked with, and he was like, oh yeah, there's this other guy, he's putting an extra 10% in, or he's chucking an extra 15 grand in, and we were first home buyers, so we were just like, well, you know, we don't want to lose it, so we kept chucking more money, and then I remember one time he just turned around and goes, no, they've just put in an extra $5,000, and we're like, no, we're not doing that anymore. So we pulled out, and I think it ended up staying on the market, and then we ended up buying our place off site another time. But again, another horror story. We're buying another spot, and old mate turned around and goes, how much do you think? And we're like, oh, hey, listen. And we were going in there thinking, hey, we're going to be smart and sneaky, and we're going to go low ball, and then we're going to expect to negotiate. And we came in and we just said, oh, you know, 510,000 is probably our best. We never heard from him again. And then we found out he ended up selling it for like 550 grand. And we're like, well, we could have afforded 550 grand. Yeah. And then he goes, well, you should have come at me with your best number.
You didn't ask for your best at the
no,
time.
You're exactly right. So
and we take that emotion out of it. Yeah. That's the beauty. We're probably that, you know, we're that calming influence through the middle, you know, to keep people balanced. You know, so. I use the redhead bluehead analogy a lot with football, like through coaching. You know, when you're playing in a game where there's a lot of emotion and there's a lot of heat, and the players are really like they're in that moment, having someone come in at that same emotional level is not going to help the situation. So we need to be that calming influence where we can come in, be really clear and articulate our message without having to be at the same emotional level as everyone else, you know?
Well, those first home buyers, and I say the first home buyers because they're the ones that have the highest emotional connection to it. Yeah. But you got the first home buyers who come in and they're like, oh, you know, this is all of our money. We've got nothing left. Like this, we're ready to throw everything that we have into this. And then you have somebody else who's like, I'm going to get as much money as I possibly can because I want a bigger bonus. So everybody's already one's already got their cards close to their chest, and then you've got the other one who's like, well, I want as much money as I possibly can. I've got 4 or 5 people who are mildly interested. I'm just going to go, hey. And then all of a sudden, you know, we've got first home buyers who are stressed and anxious and probably been at it for 12 months or, you know, and they're like, I'm over this. I don't want to do it anymore. And then you've got the real estate agent who, you know, just keeps flogging their stuff off. So, and I mean, even now, I've got heaps of people that I work with, a couple of mates who are looking for houses. One of my mates were looking for about 4 or 5 months, and he's calling me up and he's like, Matty, what do you reckon of this block? And what are you doing this? I said, mate, go and get a buyer's agent. Come talk to a buyer's agent and get yourself sorted out.
Yeah. Well, you're the calming influence. And if it's an owner-occupier, it's a different purchase because there's a lot of emotion in it, like you just explained. But it's also when you're that calming influence in the middle and you sort of become that voice of reason, you know, it's a case of, hey guys, I know we don't want to go to that level, but there's plenty of times I've said for the sake of 2, 3, 4 or 5, whatever it might be, I would highly recommend we have one more go. Yeah. If we secure it, great. If we don't, who cares? We pivot and move forward. Yeah. But the reason I say that is because I know from being an agent, when that exchange is unconditionally, that might set a new level or it sets a new market value for that property. Yeah. But then when agents look at comparative, they go, oh, such and such down the road sold for X, righto, let's set our guide between X and Y because we want to achieve not what it's sold for or $5,000 above it. They want to get 10, 15, 20 above it. So then the new market value for the next property that finally comes up that's suitable to that client or the brief is going to be substantially more than potentially extra 2 or 3 that they might have had to spend.
Yeah.
And that's where that calming, that voice of reason, sitting there with them and being able to articulate that message to them really clearly, not because we want them to buy. It's, hey, you've been on this journey for a while before you've come to us. I'm here to help. If you don't buy it, I don't care because I'm going to be beside you every step of the way.
Yeah.
But I know you want this place and we've got to look at sometimes those tiny little micro skills and those shifts to go, if we were to miss out on this, we know we're going to have to wait for another opportunity to present that's going to be similar to it. We know it's not going to be $1 or $2,000 more.
Yeah.
It's going to be 5, 10, 15, or maybe 20.
Yeah. Yeah.
And do we have that in the budget now to secure it, or do we have an extra 2 or 3 to secure this one? And it's having those deeper conversations with a client that you can have when you actually really care and get to know them.
And having and setting realistic expectations for somebody that doesn't know the market, and I think that just sets the difference between everything. Mate, I can really talk to you all night about this. This stuff absolutely intrigues me like nothing else. But I guess to close off, I want to be super clear so we can make sure that everybody who's listening tonight can be aware of what to kind of expect. So, if first home buyer, anybody, anywhere in between that spectrum of first home buyer and downsizing, people want to come to you with the non-negotiables. Like the things that they absolutely want. They want a budget. You want a budget range to have them expected, and then maybe their absolute want for I guess suburb or wherever they're moving, and any subsequent suburbs outside. Yeah,
and we'd build on that anyway. Like anyone that's looking for help or support, it's a case of, like you said, just reach out, work through it. I'll go and sit down, catch up for a coffee, go and catch up with them late of an evening, and go and sit down and go, what do we want to achieve? Is this achievable? And then we start creating all those things that you just spoke about in a strategy, in a brief, to go, well, this is the direction that we would head in, and this is the sort of timeframes we'd be looking at.
Well, mate, we've only just touched on the first home buyers, and like even though it's a massive part of I guess the industry, there's still a million things. There's developers that we can talk about. There's block sizes we can talk about and expectations. So I'll definitely have to get you back on. But what I'll do, I'll wrap it up now. And guys, if you have any questions, reach out and talk to James about anything. And mate, I'd love to have you back on, and we'll talk about all the nitty gritty stuff. But thanks so much, mate. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Ciao.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers. Thanks for listening to this week's ep of The Lounge. To make sure you don't miss out on the next episode, hit subscribe. We'd love to get the message out to more homeowners like you. Make sure you leave a rating and a review, and we'll see you on the next ep.